Okay, so now we're going to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. So far, we have solved quadratic equations. We've used the factoring method and the zero product property method. And so we take our factors, we set them equal to 0, and then we solve for the variable. We have also used the completing the square method. Now, when those things don't work for you, then the quadratic formula might be what you use instead. In fact, if you're a person who is not great at factoring or completing the square, the quadratic formula will be your new friend. Okay, so this is the quadratic formula. You need to have this in your notes right here, okay? Keep in mind that the variable doesn't necessarily have to be x, but we are talking about the horizontal axis on a graph. So we're going to call it x, but if you're dealing with a word problem, it might not be x. It could be some other variable. So we're talking about the independent axis, okay, whenever we say x here. Whenever we talk about a, b, and c, we're talking about the coefficients that are in front of the a is in front of the x squared, the b is in front of the x to the first power term, and the c is your constant term, okay? And keep in mind, we always have 0 on the other side, and if you don't have 0 on the other side of the equal sign, you need to get it that way first before you determine your a, b, and c. All right, so also, if you want to see something silly or try to memorize this formula, there's a song. This is what I learned when I was in school. It goes, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That is truly what I am humming in my head as I write down this formula every single time, I swear to you. I'm not proud of it, but it is what I do. All right, so now let's use that quadratic formula and we will solve this thing. Could we solve this by factoring? Possibly. Could we solve this by completing the square? Yeah, possibly. But I don't want to do it that way. I want to show you guys how to use the quadratic formula, okay? And so just to write down the quadratic formula again, it is okay, so now let's identify our A, our B, and our C. So our A is 2, our B is 9, and our C is -5. Notice how I took the sign that was in front of the number. This is a plus sign in front of that 9, so I have a positive 9. There's nothing in front of the 2, so it's assumed to be a positive number, okay? All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to substitute these values in for A, B, and C into this formula, okay? All right, so x is equal to negative b means the opposite of whatever your b term is. So since it's positive 9, I'm going to write down -9 plus or minus the square root of. Get in the habit of putting the b term inside parentheses because if the b term is negative, those parentheses make all the difference in the world. If the b term is positive, it won't matter, okay? But you need to be in that habit for when it is negative. 4 times a times c all over 2 times a, okay? Now, here's the thing that I want you to get used to. Use a calculator. I'm totally okay with it, but do me a favor. Don't try to type this whole thing into the calculator because if you don't use the appropriate amount of parentheses, then the calculator will not do the order of operations correctly. So here's my recommendation. I recommend that you only type in what's under the radical and do this thing in pieces. Okay, so I would write down -9 plus or minus. I would write down the radical, I would write down what my denominator is, and now I'm going to do the math for this right here in the calculator. Okay, here's what I'm typing in. Parenthesis 9, close parenthesis, hit the square button, the minus button, and then 4, and then open parenthesis, 2, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, -5, close parenthesis, hit enter. And I get I got to write now, 121, okay? All right. Now, I can take the square root of 121. So I get -9 plus or minus 11 all over 4, okay? Notice plus or minus means I'm going to do the plus and I'm also going to do the minus. So here's what I'm going to write down. So I'm going to do -9 plus 11 over 4, and I'm going to do -9 minus 11 over 4. Okay? -9 plus 11 over 4, so -9 plus 11 is 2. 2 over 4 is 1/2. Okay? -9 minus 11 is -20 over 4, which is -5. So these right here are my two solutions. Okay? So x is equal to 1/2 and -5. Can you check your work? Totally. You can take this 1/2 and put it in here, and then do the math and see if you get 0 as an answer. Then you take -5, put it in here and here, do the math and see if you get out 0 as an answer. Okay, so these are just the steps for using the quadratic formula. I don't expect you to have these steps memorized, but you might want to read through them. We do each of these steps every time we do a problem, but again, you don't have to memorize them. I do strongly recommend that you always check your solutions, okay? I don't do that always in the videos because I'm trying to save some time. I don't want you to have to watch a 45-minute or an hour-long video. So anyways, that's why I'm not checking them, but you should. Okay, so check yourself and see if this is written in standard form, and it is. And now we need to decide what our A, B, and C are. Our A is 1, our B is -6, and our C is 5. Okay, so I'm going to do the quadratic formula. I'm not going to write down the formula every single time. You should have this in your notes. So -b means the opposite of -6. Since the b is a -6, I'm going to write down a +6 plus or minus the square root of -6. This is where it's super important to have that parenthesis, -4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Okay, so now I've got 6 plus or minus the square root of, and I'm going to do that math here in just a second on the calculator. 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, so now on my calculator, here's what I'm typing in. Parenthesis, -6, close parenthesis, that's important. Then hit the square button, -4, open parenthesis, 1, don't really need it, but I'm typing it anyway. Open parenthesis, 5, close parenthesis, hit enter, and you get 16. Okay. Next, I'm going to take the square root of 16. So I've got 6 plus or minus 4 all over 2. Now I'm going to do this twice. 6 plus 4 over 2, and then 6 minus 4 over 2. 6 plus 4 is 10. 10 over 2 is 5. 6 minus 4 is 2. 2 over 2 is 1. So x is equal to 1 and 5. Again, you should check your work. Go back to the original problem and check to see if 1 is the solution, then check to see if 5 is the solution. I apologize, my phone rang and it messed up the video. Okay, so the answer that I got was -0.44. That's rounded, okay? So why I would use this sort of equal sign. That is an approximation equal sign. Notice a regular equal sign is totally flat, and these are squiggly. Okay, so our two solutions are, here's your exact answers, and here are your approximate answers. All right, so let's take a look at this one. Now, let's see here. It's written in standard form, so our A is 2, our B is 10, and our C is 11. So we've got that x is equal to the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C, all over 2 times A. All right, now I'm just going to do that part and that part. And on my calculator, I am typing in parenthesis 10, close parenthesis, square that baby, minus 4, open parenthesis, times 2, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, 11. Enter. And I get 12. Okay, so I can't easily take the square root of 12, but I can simplify 12. Remember, 12 is the same thing as 4 times 3, right? Okay, so I can take the square root of 4. All right, so then I've got negative 10 plus or minus 2 square roots of 3 all over 4. Now, normally this would be about as good as we can get, except one thing I want you to notice is that notice all these even numbers here. And whenever you have all even numbers, that means that you can simplify each of those by a factor of 2, okay? So 4 divided by 4 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, which we don't normally have to write that 1 in front of the square root of 3. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. So our exact answers are x is equal to negative 5 plus the square root of 3 over 2 and negative 5 minus the square root of 3 over 2. Notice I didn't write the 1. It is assumed to be there, but you should always write your answers in the most simplified form that you can get. Oh, and I'm not going to give you the decimal representation here. Generally, we don't want the decimal representation unless we're doing a word problem where we need to estimate a distance or something like that. Let's just get used to leaving things in the exact answer unless I ask you for the decimal or the approximation. All right, let's take a look at this problem. So is it written in standard form? Yes, it is. So we've got A is 3, B is 2, and C is 9. All right, so we're solving for P this time. Negative B, which is opposite of B, is negative 2, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C, all over 2 times A. All right, now let's do some math. So I've got negative 2 plus or minus. I haven't done that math yet. And then I've got 6 in the denominator. So on my calculator, here's what I'm typing in. Parenthesis, open parenthesis, 2, close parenthesis, square button, minus 4, open parenthesis, 3, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, 9, close parenthesis, hit enter. And I get negative 104. Okay, now here's what I want you to notice here. We cannot take the square root of a negative number. We have not learned about imaginary numbers in this class yet. So for right now, we will say that there are no real solutions to this problem. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. Is this written in standard form? No, it is not. All right, so let's get it that way. Let's distribute. So I've got x squared plus 6x plus 4 equals 0. And that is written in standard form. So I'm good now. I've got my A is 1, my B is 6, and my C is 4. So x is equal to negative b, opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. Now we have negative 6 plus or minus, I haven't done that part yet, over 2. So on my calculator, here's what I'm typing in. Open parenthesis, 6, close parenthesis, hit the square button. Minus 4, open parenthesis, 1, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, 4, close parenthesis. And I get 20. And remember, 20 can be written as 4 times 5, because I can easily take the square root of 4, okay? So my next line will say negative 6 plus or minus 2 square roots of 5 all over 2. Now, can I simplify this? Yes, notice that this is positive. I'm sorry, it's not positive, it's even. This is even, this is even, and this is even. They can all be reduced by a factor of 2, okay? So I am going to divide each and every one of those by 2. Okay, and the ones are not necessary in this problem. So x is equal to negative 3 plus the square root of 5 and negative 3 minus the square root of 5. Yes, all of that is over 1, but we don't need to write it. Anything over 1, you don't have to write the over 1 part. Okay, so these are my 2 exact answers. All right, let's take a look at this one. All right, so I don't know about you, but I like to deal with fractions. I like them better than decimals, yes, but I like to deal with them as little as possible because it's something that I can easily get confused in my mind, all right? So if I could ever get rid of a fraction, I will. And so here's how you get rid of these fractions. You look and you ask yourself, 2, 3, and 3, what is the common denominator between 2, 3, and 3? It would be 6. So I'm going to multiply 6 by each and every term, and guess what that does? It gets rid of my fractions. So whenever I multiply 6 times 1/2, I end up with 3u squared. 6 times 2/3 u. Now, you might need to think about this for a second, but this is actually very easy math to do without a calculator. So here's how I do this quickly in my head. 6 divided by 3, so 6 divided by 3 is 2, and then 2 times 2 is 4. So I would have plus 4u. 6 times 1/3, that is the same thing as 6 divided by 3, which is 2. Now, even this is not written in standard form, so we need to get something equals 0. So I would have to subtract 2 from both sides. Okay, now I'm going to identify my A, B, and C. A is 3, B is 4, and C is negative 2. Okay, so now U is equal to negative B, which is negative 4, plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2 times A. All right, negative 4 plus or minus the square root of, haven't done that math yet, 2 times 3 is 6. All right, on my calculator, here's what I'm typing in. Open parenthesis 4, close parenthesis, hit the square button, minus 4, open parenthesis, 3, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, negative 2, close parenthesis, enter. And I get 40, okay? So let's see here. Yep, 40 can be written as 4 times 10. Yeah, that's about as good as that thing gets. Okay, so I can take the square root of 4. So let's see here. I've got negative 4 plus or minus, let's see here, 2 square roots of 10 all over 6. So U is equal to, and look, all these are even again. Okay, so I can reduce every one of these factors by, every one of these by a factor of 2. All right, so 2 goes into negative 4, negative 2 times, 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 6 3 times. So u turns out to be negative 2 plus the square root of 10 over 3 and negative 2 minus the square root of 10 all over 3. Those are your two exact solutions. All right, let's take a look at this one. So let's see here. It's not written in standard form. We need to get it that way. So we have 4x squared minus 20x plus 25 is equal to 0. You're probably thinking, I think we can factor that, but we're not going to. We're going to use the quadratic formula, okay? So here goes the quadratic formula. Our A is 4, our B is negative 20, and our C is 25, okay? So we've got that x is equal to opposite of B, which is now positive 20, plus or minus the square root of B, oops, I forgot my 0, squared, minus 4 times A times C, all over 2 times A. All right, let's do some math here. So I've got 20 plus or minus, I haven't done that math yet, over 8. On my calculator. This one, the parentheses are definitely important on that B term because it's negative. So open parenthesis, negative 20, close parenthesis, hit your square button, minus 4, open parenthesis, 4, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, 25, close parenthesis, hit enter. I get 0. I can take the square root of 0. That's pretty easy. So I get 20 plus 0 over 8 and 20 minus 0 over 8. Incidentally, plus 0 minus 0 are the same thing, right? So 20 over 8 reduces to be 5/2. So we only get one solution this time, and that's okay. It's okay to only get one solution. The reason why we only got one solution is because what was under here was 0, okay? So anytime you get 0 under there, you're only going to have one solution. And there it is. And notice 20 over 8, I reduced that by a factor of 4, okay? 20 divided by 4 is 5. 8 divided by 4 is 2. That's where I get 5/2 from. Okay. I'm going to show you this, but this is not a requirement for this class. This is going to come in handy for you in later classes, but it's not anything I'm going to be testing you over in the 95 class. It's not even anything I'm going to be asking you homework questions over in the 95 class. But it's something that does come up. This thing right here, b squared minus 4ac, is called the discriminant. Okay, that's its vocabulary word, discriminant, okay? And what it does, it has a very, very special meaning, okay? Right here, if your discriminant is positive, whenever you do this math and what's under the radical is positive, you will get two solutions. I think you've probably noticed that, okay? When we did the math, remember, and we got 0 under the radical, we only had one solution. Remember that? That was the last problem that we did. And whenever we did the discriminant, which is what's under the radical, and we got a negative number, we didn't have any real solutions, okay? Because we can't take the square root of a negative number. So that's hopefully something that makes a lot of sense to you right now. You're like, oh, yeah, no kidding. When it was positive, we got two solutions. When it was 0, we only got one solution. When it was negative, we got 0 real solutions, okay? So this actually has a very special meaning. It's called the discriminant. By the way, if you don't want to go further in this video, I promise you, you won't be missing out on this class anyway, but it might be something that you could use later on down the road. All right, this page is just redefining what I said in that very last page. It's saying that if your discriminant is greater than 0, you have two solutions. If your discriminant is equal to 0, you have one solution. And if your discriminant is less than 0 or a negative number, it has no real solutions. So now this page is just saying determine the number of solutions to each quadratic equation. Notice they're not asking us what the solutions are. They're just saying how many solutions are there. Okay, so let's look at A. All right, so let's identify our A, B, and C. Our A is 2, our B is -3, and our C is 6. All we're looking for is B squared minus 4AC. Okay, so I've got -3 squared minus 4 times 2 times 6. And whenever I do that math, I did open parenthesis, -3, close parenthesis, square that baby, minus 4, open parenthesis, 2, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, 6, close parenthesis, enter. And I get -39. So because I got a negative number, we have no real solutions for this problem. Remember, negative means no real solutions. Okay, so that was for A. Let's look at B. So our A is 3, our B is 7, and our C is -9. Okay, let's do B squared minus 4AC again. Why did I not put parentheses around that 7 this time? Because it's positive, it doesn't matter, okay? If your B is a negative number, those parentheses make all the difference in the world. So, yeah, let's get in good habits. Let's put the parentheses. Minus 4 times A times C, okay? So I get open parentheses, 7, close parentheses, square, minus 4, open parentheses, 3, close parentheses, open parentheses, -9, close parenthesis, hit enter, and I get 157. So because this number is positive, on part B, I get 2 real solutions. Okay? I don't know what the solutions are. The solutions are not 157. That just tells us that we get 2 real solutions because this number is positive. Okay? All right, let's look at C now. On C, looking at this one right here, okay, so our A is 5, our B is 1, and our C is 4. B squared minus 4 times A times C. So 1 squared is, let's see here, 1 minus 4 times 5 times 4. And I get -79. That means on part C, we get no real solutions. Why do we get no real solutions? What makes it so? It's not the 79, it's that thing in front of it. This negative sign means that we can't take the square root of a negative number, so we'll have no real solutions here. All right, let's do part D. I'm getting tired of using black, so I'm going to use purple now. All right, so A is 9, C is -6, and what am I talking about? B is -6. Sorry. C is 1. All right, so B squared minus 4AC, so -6 squared minus 4 times A, that's a 9, times C. All right, so on my calculator, it's super important how I type this in. Open parenthesis, -6, close parenthesis, hit the square button, minus 4, open parenthesis, 9, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, 1, close parenthesis, enter. And I get 0. What does it mean whenever you have a 0 there? Well, it means that you get 1 real solution. Okay, so you have learned 3 methods for solving quadratic equations. You have learned factoring. I'm all for factoring whenever you can, okay? But if I ask you to use a specific method, which I have on your written assignments, I expect you to use the method on any of the problems that I gave you. You could factor on all of them. But I'm asking you to use specific methods because I want to see that you know how to use those, okay? So try factoring first. Whenever you have a choice, try factoring first. Try the square root property by completing the square. And then try the quadratic formula. The reason why we say quadratic formula last is because, as you can see, that formula is messy and it's very easy to get lost in. So that's why we say quadratic formula last. I don't get as lost in the quadratic formula anymore, but it's also because I've been doing this for 20 plus years. I know where I make my mistakes, and I don't let myself do too much on one line at a time. I do little chunks of the problem versus trying to do the whole problem at once on the calculator. All right, that's it for this video. I hope that you have a better understanding of the quadratic formula and how to use it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and have a wonderful day.